Thank you all for taking time out of your day. It's always so nice to see all these smiling faces looking back at us. Great way to connect in this Empower Hour. And we're really excited to have Sara Roach Lewis with us today. She is a business consultant who will help you transform your vision into reality by helping you identify the right areas to be focusing on at the right time. And over the last 15 years, she's worked with some of our country's top female leaders, and she has helped dozens of entrepreneurs scale and grow their businesses. So we're very, very fortunate to have her here with us today to talk about time management. I know there was a lot of great questions that got put into her thread earlier today too, so I think that'll give her lots to look at. And I'm also going to share her company website in the chat. So if anyone's interested in learning more about her and what she does, you can hop on over there and check it out. And I'm just going to put everybody else on mute just to avoid any background noise, anything like that. And Sara, I'll leave it up to you to say how you want to handle questions and things like that, but I can help you facilitate if needed.
Sure, that's great.
Over to you.
Thank you, Julianne, and thank you all for being here. It's sort of one of my favorite topics. So, and I really like the Empower PEI group. So I'm happy to kind of combine these two things together. In terms of how we want to proceed today, certainly feel free to just ask questions. You can use some of the things that Zoom allows us to do in terms of, there is, if you click on the participant box, there's a place where you can raise your hand, or you can just type in the chat box, or truly just unmute yourself and interrupt me. That works perfectly fine for me. I am going to walk us through a bit of a presentation that I created that I hope answers some of the questions. But before we do that, if we can just do a quick round of introductions. There's not that many of us on the call, and it would be great to do that. So if you just want to do, just your name, your company, and one food that you are looking forward to now that we're like planting things and things are starting to get going. So in the effort of like keeping this smooth, since nobody knows who's sitting beside them, I'll just go down the line. So Julianne, you're in my top left. So do you want to unmute yourself and get started?
Sure. So hi, everyone. I'm Julianne Goche. I am a leadership coach, and I also own a tourism business, Joey's Deep Sea Fishing. And I think right now I'm just looking forward to things starting to reopen a little bit and easing back and navigating new ways to do business without losing all the good stuff that we've had in the past too.
Great, thanks. Vanessa, just tell me a little bit about your business and a food that you are looking forward to eating as summer starts.
Okay, hi there. My name is Vanessa Smith. So I do marketing for the Charlottetown Airport, and I also have an event, a monthly event where I interview local entrepreneurs called the Business in the Open. And a food that I'm looking to enjoy, I just really want like a good cheese and charcuterie board. I know that's not really summer, winter, fall, but like I just want to go to a restaurant and get a really nice cheese and charcuterie board. So.
Seems to me someone on the call can help you out with that. Brenda? Oh, we can't hear you.
Sorry. I'm Brenda Sanders Passmore. I own Sanctuary Yoga and Massage here in Charlottetown. I'm looking forward to lobster.
Right on.
Yeah.
Angela, thanks, Brenda. Angela, Louise, and then Christina.
Angela McDonald. I am Angela McDonald Consulting. I do contract CFO services. And immediately when you said summer food, I immediately went to fresh strawberries.
Amazing. Louise, Christina, and then Lisa. We can't hear you, Louise. No. You're still on mute there. You should be good now. No, you've got some speaker stuff going on. I'm going to move to Christina, and if you figure out you're a speaker, if not, you can just type in the chat box. So Christina, Lisa, and then Sharon.
Hi guys, I'm Christina. I'm a wedding planner. I own Elysian Weddings and Events. And I am like Angela, I'm like going right to the strawberries. I can't wait to get some fresh local strawberries. I'll just eat them all day.
Amazing. Thank you. Lisa, Sharon, and then Helena.
Okay, this is the first time I've did Zoom. I've been watching my kids do this, so bear with me. I own a tourism business on the island. If you're wondering what I'm looking forward to summer treats, yeah, a good strawberry shortcake, that would be definitely one good treat to have to brighten up this summer.
Thanks, Lisa. Sharon, Helena, and then Marcia.
Hey, I'm Sharon. I own Bounce Hair Studio, and honest to goodness, I just want to eat something that doesn't come out of my kitchen.
Fair enough, Sharon. Helena, Marcia, and then Carol.
Hi, my name is Helena. I own Mosaic Management Events and now Cured Creations, PEI charcuterie delivery boxes. So Vanessa, call me. And I'm really looking forward to a lobster roll, going tomorrow night to get one. So I'm excited about that.
Nice. Marcia, Carol, and then Ash.
Hi, I'm Marcia Weeks. I'm a marriage commissioner on Prince Edward Island, and I'm really looking also forward to a lobster roll very soon, hopefully.
Great, thank you. Carol, Ash, and then Jackie.
Hi, I'm Carol O'Hanley, and I'm co-owner and office manager of Exit Realty PEI. And I always look forward to the first feed of lobster. So that's what I'm looking forward to, hopefully on the weekend.
Thank you. Ash.
Hey guys, I'm Ash, leader of Empower PEI, and I'm a graphic designer. I am just looking forward to anything that I don't have to make, honestly.
Amazing. And finally, Jackie.
I am owner operator of Hop Sip Swirl Tasting Tours. We're winery, brewery, distillery tours, and I'm looking forward to sipping cocktails on a patio. So not really anything to do with food, but sipping something on a patio sounds really good right about now. Not my patio, someone else's patio.
Even better.
Yeah.
Louise, you want to try again? No. Okay. Louise Campbell. Oh, she's gone again. So we'll get started and we'll just get Louise to hop in the chat box. So I'm going to share my screen with you. So I just have a few slides, mostly just to sort of guide our conversation and keep me on track, because I can go off when I don't have something to guide me. Just give me one sec. There we go. So if I move this down, move this over, you should be able to just see a portion of my screen now. That is someone, oops, the top of my screen is gone. Okay, so it's gone now, but the top of this image, oh, shoot, sorry guys. Just let me get my screen sorted out here. I want to, just give me one sec. I need to make this bigger. There. So the top of this, which I've lost, says how I'm flattening the curve. So I just kind of wanted to start with this because, you know, I talk to people all of the time, women in particular, and the inability to focus, the managing of time, like the weirdness around time, and that really like, what the hell day is it? My cousin said to me the other day, every day is Tuesday. It's not the weekend, it's not Monday, but it sure isn't anywhere close to the weekend. So, you know, I think we're all sort of having that similar experience. I just want to say, I'm gonna open my chat box too and pop it over here so I can see it. So we're all kind of having that same experience. And I think one of the challenges that we're facing right now is that we're all being kind of hard on ourselves for our lack of focus, for our lack of time management, and our, general challenges that we're facing. And at the end of the day, we're all in the same boat. And this is what I do. This is what I talk to people about all the time. And I would absolutely say that I'm in that same boat as everyone else. I think, the difference is some of the stuff that I'll talk about today is, much of this is simply just a reminder of things you already know. And I think where we can really hope to get to at this point is as we recognize the challenges that we're facing, is with more practice, you just recover more quickly. We all have these times of not being able to focus. And I think it's perfectly natural. Like, really, can we imagine a world, or do we want to be the person who sails through a global pandemic, without any real interruption in their world? Like, that's just probably not a reality. So I'd love to just hear if you just want to type in the chat box, sort of, a yes, no. Are your worries, responsibilities, and distractions greater than they were 8 or 9 weeks ago? So if you can just chat in the chat box, yes or no to that. Yeah. Right. Yep. So there we are. We are all very firmly in the same camp. And so there's a little bit of like, yep, all in the same boat. And what's happening right now? So there's also the reality of being a woman in business, and this is what our world looks like before coronavirus, and more certainly, I don't know anybody, whether you've got kids or don't have kids, whether whatever your particular experience is as a woman, this is even more emphasized right now. And historically, the reality is the historic experience of women's businesses during pandemics and recessions is not great. Women's businesses do not survive to the same degree that men's do. And so we've got Sharon who says no, but everyone else. So we've got one who isn't necessarily experiencing a difference. But the reality is, overwhelmingly, we have more emotional labor now than we did before. If we've got kids, there's more time needed to be dedicated to them without any of the supports that we usually do. Regardless of whether you've got children, there's more cooking, more cleaning. That second shift that that this slide speaks to is real, and for lots of people, we have a third shift now. So for those of you who are still struggling to breathe, because I said that women's businesses don't survive pandemics as well as men's do, let's just talk a little bit about that. And so part of that is exactly what I just showed you, is because we tend to take on more home care, child care, and elder care responsibilities. And quite frankly, women's time in our society isn't valued the same way that men's is. The other reason why women's businesses don't necessarily survive pandemics and recessions as well as others is because we tend to have businesses that are smaller on average, and the revenues are less. So it becomes that decision point for a family or for you that it's easier for that business to go away than something else. So when I was in a meeting not that long ago that this reality is kind of what we're facing, it kind of knocked me sideways. And again, realistically, it makes sense. And yet I really was a little rattled by it. And I think it's important to talk about because it doesn't have to be that way. And a recognition, an understanding of that also allows us to get really clear about like, what do we want and what do we don't want? And if we don't want this, then how do we focus on making sure that doesn't happen? For me, when this whole pandemic hit, and it was a change of second and nobody knew what was going on, I was really, really rattled. And I was really rattled for my own business because I provide strategy and coaching and advising, which of course is super important, particularly when you're feeling like things are cloudy. However, it absolutely can be seen as discretionary. And I'm very aware that for many of us who are B2B, we sell to business, and I'm just really aware that I am an expense line to someone else. So I was super rattled about this. And then when I read this, and heard this, I really kind of saw this as a bit of a battle cry of, it doesn't have to be that way. It doesn't have to be that way for me, and it doesn't have to be that way for other women. And so it really reminded me of my own why. Like, why do I do this? And a big part of my why for why I run my business is because I believe that gender equality can solve all of the world's problems. I believe that more women entrepreneurs having better economic security and prosperity means a better community for everyone. I am talking to the choir when I say women support other women, and that is in business and in life. So I had some pretty big ambitious goals for 2020, like all of you. And I had to really think about what that was going to look like. And so I decided a while ago that I wasn't going to walk away from those goals, even though I had absolutely no idea how that was going to happen, because, things like my very first paying gig to speak to a conference in Jamaica on April 27th got canceled. So, some of those real opportunities for lead generation absolutely went away. So I say that because as we're going through this massive crisis in our community, in our world, and in our business, it is really, in order to manage your time better, in order to find your focus, it's actually really helpful to remember why the heck you're doing this in the first place. I interviewed a woman for Breakthrough, a podcast that I used to host, and she said, and she ran this global business and was like basically jet setting everywhere. And I asked her, kind of about that, and she said, actually, like, what was, how does one make the decision to run a global business? And her comment was, actually, the only crazy thing is to decide to be an entrepreneur. After that, all the rest of it are really minor decisions. So I want you to just take a minute to think about what's your why. And it's okay if you're stuck here, because it's not an easy question. And I know that for some of you, just forget about the pandemic. Think about when you started this business. Why do you do this? And was that for freedom? Was it for flexibility? Was it for passion? And it's not lost on me that many of you here are in the tourism business, in this tourism sector. Many of you are service-based, and that, it's not necessarily looking great right now. However, it is also helpful to remember why you chose to be an entrepreneur in the first place, because that drive and ambition and fire in your belly, these are your businesses, but that fire in your belly is a big part of how we figure out how to manage our time and how we figure out how to focus. So everybody had a chance to think about what their why is. Can you give me a thumbs up if you have? All right. And if you have any questions, yeah, so Jackie says the challenge. Anybody else want to just pop in there? Yep. So writing is Louise's passion. Savannah wants to serve community. Any other reasons your whys? Just pop them in there. Independence, empowering others to follow their dreams, passion, flexibility, and personal growth. Creating opportunities and helping others. None of these have anything to do with, you know, where we are right now. So it's really sort of helpful to remember that. Carol wanted to build a successful company, and that just that feeling of building. Carol, I know you well enough. You also want to build community, right? Yeah. Yeah. Okay, so we've remembered our why. And we remember why we wanted to be an entrepreneur in the first place. So what the hell do we do now? The very first thing that you can do is be kind and gentle with yourself right now, and also firm. So when we're in crisis, whether it's big or little, we do, you know, we treat ourselves the way that we would treat our very best friend. And that's not by beating ourselves up when we don't get all the things accomplished that we wanted. So the kind and gentle is relatively self-explanatory. Yeah, so Brenda wants the passion and satisfaction of helping people. So if you were your best friend, you would not be beating them up for not getting as much done in your business that you used to. And again, it goes back to that previous slide. We are doing more now than we normally do. And with way less certainty than most of us are comfortable with. There are lots of things to be worried about. And so be kind and gentle with yourself. So what does firm look like? Firm is doing the shit we don't want to do, taking the tiny steps toward what we want, and moving a little bit further along that sort of emotional scale, right? So the being firm is, and what my whole sort of conversation today is about the kind and gentle and firm. So what does that look like? How do we inspire ourselves to do the things that we know we need to do, but we might not necessarily feel like doing? Because I'm a business strategist, I'm going to talk a little bit about strategy. And so it may seem really self-explanatory, but I think it's bears having a conversation about. In order for you to be that business that thrives, in order for you to have that company that you dreamed about at the beginning of this year, in order for 2020 to be the decade of women in business, right now, survival is where it's at. And then we thrive. And so survival is really individual. So for some of you, it means hustling more to bring in more work, focusing on doing what you're already doing in front of you. It might mean reducing your expenses. It might be pivoting. And for some folks, it might mean pressing pause. And you know, there's a saying that I often think about, and it's don't dig a hole to climb a mountain. And often, you know, when I'm having conversations with people, they've got sort of all of these ideas. It's like, actually, you're digging the hole to climb the mountain. Stop doing that. But in many ways, the hole's already been dug for us, right? So we're now at that phase where I think we're at that phase of, like, this really sucks, and this is kind of, you know, there's more knowns. Things are becoming more known, even though there's lots of unknowns. And I get it. Like, I am in a fishing family. We have a tourism business as well. My husband and I run a tuna charter company and had grand plans to do a collaboration with Jackie this year. And that is, you know, when I look at that, survival for wild tuna charters means it's not happening this year. And that's really when we look at the cost to get started up and the current situation, it doesn't make sense. And that is not an easy decision to make, but it is the one that we made. So that survival is very personal for what that looks like. When I look at fishing, you know, that has been its own agonizing experience over the last little while. And, you know, we're boat loading tomorrow, setting on Friday, and going into a season where we are absolutely certain that we are not going to make any money. And it is absolutely a question of reduce your expenses and be prepared to you know, be prepared for what is in front of us. And that is like weird things that we never imagined before. Like, what if we have to pull a gear? If the market collapses? Those are not easy decisions to make. And part of what makes them a little bit easier is budgets and expenses, and being able to really unpack. So, you know, part of what we were able to do in that decision around fishing in particular was really having a clear understanding of what our costs were. How much per pound do we need in order to make this viable? And I went through a whole fun process of looking at all of our expenses on what do we need, you know, need to have, nice to have, can cut, and can negotiate. And what we were able to really see in that is many of the costs around fishing are costs of goods sold. So it's fuel and your help and your bait. So those are things that go away if your fishing effort goes away. So really thinking about it in those sorts of ways around what does your business need to make it through this particular time, knowing full well that for many of you, there's still an awful lot of unknown. So now, you know, I can certainly talk a lot, like I can talk more about this strategy piece. I think it's really critical in terms of when we are worried about our lack of focus and about our management of time, that is when we absolutely need to be clear that we are focusing our precious resources, as in our mind, on the things that are most important for our business. So that is kind of key and critical. So now that we know what your business strategy is, then we want to talk about the how. So how exactly do we do this? Any of you who have ever heard me speak before have seen a variation on this slide. And this is really about if you have those days where you think, I have been so busy and yet I don't know what I actually accomplished today, this is a function of context switching. So I realized that my headings are gone. I don't know where they went. But over here, so this is really this idea around how come we have these days where we worked really hard all day and we're tired at the end of the day, and yet we don't really have anything to show for it. We don't feel like we've accomplished anything. There's all kinds of research that talks about the time that we lose when we switch between projects or tasks. So along this column are the number of projects that we may have on the go. Here is the amount of time that we have dedicated to each project. And here's the amount of time that we lose when we switch our context. And so in that context switching, that's really about, you know, you're digging in, you've decided, okay, I'm going to do this ridiculously agonizing exercise that Sara has just suggested. I'm going to dig into my finances and figure out all of these things. And so you're right in there, and, you know, you've got your spreadsheets and you've got your, you know, whatever that looks like for you, you're starting to pull together those numbers. And, you know, your phone rings or it buzzes or an email bangs, and you switch over and you have a conversation with your mom, or, you know, you have a client conversation. It's the time that it takes to switch back to that, where you're like, right, what was I doing? What were these numbers that I've written down? or, you know, or it's 2 days later and you have to go and actually find all of those files again. So that's context switching. And we lose time every time we do that. And so this is really where we get to, is on those particular days. I just want to really caution you on this, that a big piece of focusing is reducing the amount of time that you're switching back and forth between activities. So the crux of the matter is around time management. The reality is our focus is splintered right now. The reality is we have all of these other things on our plate. And so it is super important that the time that you spend on your business is radically focused on mission critical activities only. So going back to that survival, what are the things that you need to do in order to make sure that your business survives? And then when I talk about that, and so then it's like, okay, so what does that actually look like? Generally, I think that we need to be planning in quarters. So we're going to look at the, you know, our vision for the year, and then we're going to drill that down into, you know, what does the next 90 days look like? Well, at the end of the day right now, it's really hard to think about 90 days. It's getting a little bit easier as time passes. So what I've been doing and what I'm encouraging my clients to do is just to look at the month. What are the things that we know we need to accomplish in this month? And take the time to map that out. And then at the beginning of each week, what are those, and just looking at your calendar, what are the things that are on my calendar this week? What are the things that I know that I need to do in order to kind of keep things rolling? And then drilling that right down into the day. Now, whether that is, you know, an online, whether you're using something online to keep yourself organized, or you use a notebook, you know, that's really personal preference. I really encourage you to plan the day before. What are the 3 things you're going to do? Like just taking a few minutes at the end of the day to say, these are the things that the 3 things that I wanted to accomplish today. You know, this is what I did, and this is what I plan to do tomorrow. It helps grease the wheel, get your brain going. And again, it hits down to that, oh, it must be on the next slide. It's gonna really help you focus on the wins. We spend an awful lot of time beating ourselves up for the shit we didn't do. So let's spend some time getting clear on what it is that we have accomplished. Really simple, turn off your notifications. And even if it's, you know, that Podmoro method where just set a timer for 15 minutes, set a timer for 20 minutes, and decide on what is the focused work that you're going to do. If you choose to do one 20-minute time block a day, that's awesome. You know, we're really just looking at like, what are the incremental things that you can do to kind of get that focus. And I would argue that we've all had those opportunities. I mean, anybody who works on deadline, right? We've all had those times where, you know, you've got a deadline and you just got to get it done. And you can get in that flow state and stuff just happens. So we just want to start to, you know, use that as a way of managing our time. It's just kind of blocking that off if at all possible. And I know that there's people on the call there, you know, who have kids and, you know, particularly small kids. You know, that definitely has its challenges. But if you can kind of start to block out some of this time, that's really helpful. I say treats and prizes. I always sort of be like, you know, when I do something big, I'm like, I should win a prize. Like, what's the prize for that? So, you know, whatever your prize is for doing that. The other time management thing I would really encourage you to think about is outsourcing. So what are the ways that when you think about all the things that you have to do, and again, it's easy to say, but Sara, I need to, you know, keep my expenses tight. Sure, yes, and also looking at Are there ways of outsourcing some of the things you're not great at or you don't want to do or really challenging for you, and that may be on a trade. I have in the past employed my mom to do things for me when I just needed help and I didn't have the money to do it. And she was more than willing to help me do the things that she was able to do. So we can be creative around our outsourcing. And that's really about making sure you're not doing, you're spending the time doing the things that you're best at. And again, going back to that, spending the time on these mission critical activities. So the other piece around improving focus, so those are all like sort of really practical, kind of like external to self things that you can do. I do want to just spend a minute talking about, sort of improving focus around, building an activity to our day. The weather is getting nicer. And I'm not suggesting that anybody needs to run a marathon or even go for an hour-long walk. But if you can get up, stretch, get away from your computer and go for a 5-minute walk, it will clear your head and it will help you feel more focused. Like I think we have this idea that what we need to do in order to focus and really kind of do these things in our business is have this beating ourselves up by insisting that we sit in one space until everything is done. Do your 20 minutes and then go and do something else. All of these are all things that you already know. Sleep, water, take breaks. If you can, so meditation and mindfulness practice. I started doing a mindfulness practice a number of years ago. I have a chronic health condition and I was really quite sick in 2017. And so I just sort of decided, you know what, if I'm going, I just sort of came to terms with the fact that, probably I'm going to be busy 3 days a week. But those other 2 days a week, I felt really good. It was either off or on. And so I decided that I just needed to make sure that I had optimum health on those days. And so I started a mindfulness practice where I just downloaded an app. I used Insight Timer. There's Calm is another one. I'm sure there's a million other ones. And it is extraordinary what some of those apps, some of those are 2 and 3 minutes long. What that can do to reset and actually help you focus is unbelievable. A morning routine, I know that there was a conversation at some point around and I think it might have been in the call that I was on around morning routines. It doesn't so much matter, I don't think, about what time you get up. I think that how you start your day, it's sort of that in anyone who's done sort of training, there's always this idea about start the way you wish to proceed. And so I think that really applies to our morning as well. And so I certainly wouldn't prescribe a morning routine, but I really encourage you to think about that. How do I want this day to roll out, and start your day that way? And so I have this great book. I know there was a conversation at one point as well around planners and stuff. This one is called a High Performance Planner, and it's got these great pages in it, and it says, it's my message to myself. There's a morning mindset. I've been doing it for, my priorities, who I want to connect with. It really helps you be intentional about your day. I really don't stick to anything for more than 5 minutes. And I've been doing this for about 6 months, and I cannot tell you what a difference that including that in my morning routine has made. And then it's about recalibrate, right? We are living in a world right now where really at any given moment something can just send us sideways, and so this is about just not beating yourself up, and that constant iteration, right? So, okay, so you know what? Today kind of sucked. Well, that's all right. I get to start all over again tomorrow. And what am I going to do tomorrow in order to just make it that you know, just, I've lost my words. And it's about, I think sometimes too, we're in a place where we can be pretty low on the old emotional resilience scale right now. So it's about finding that next best feeling place, right? There's probably not a real likelihood that we're going to go from like, I'm pretty worried, to like, I'm having the best day ever. So what's the thing that's going to make you feel that kind of like, where's the next best feeling place? So I say this to my kids all the time. You know, yeah, okay, so you know what? You can't go to Charlottetown and play in a band with your friends. Absolutely. But what's the next best thing that you can do? So maybe you can play guitar yourself, or maybe you can talk to your friends. So just thinking about that as well. And then celebrate your successes, your wins, and your lessons learned. In the not-for-profit sector where I spent a lot of time, we never talked about mistakes. We always talked about lessons learned. And it's a great frame on that of like, you know, what are the things that you're doing now? I'm going to be done in a second, so then we can, you know, have a chat about that. But I think, again, this piece here, so how, oops, I wanted to highlight that, but it's not going to let me. Celebrate your successes, your wins, and your lessons learned. It really does help. And that's where that, you know, your morning, you're writing things down at the end of the day, just capturing those. And if you're, you know, it does not matter what the win is, but it's that like the momentum builds. And it's this idea that small changes do turn into results over time. And so just looking at this of, and what this actually speaks to is, if nothing changes after 365 days, we have the same. If we make a 1% change over 1 year, there's, you know, more than a third increase, a 37% increase in whatever it is that you're doing. So it really is this idea that, you know, and we all can think of those examples in our lives, those times when we've overcome other things that have been hard. It's actually just the little tiny changes that we make, because that momentum, you know, the momentum from action builds that momentum, and it's the tiny changes that make the difference. So I want to leave you, I want you just to think about this in terms of, you know, these are the little things, right? So I'm not, you know, it is the little things of making the decision to just send the email, make the ask. You know, I see Carol on the call. Carol, a couple of years ago, was my first client on PEI. And it was like absolutely terrifying to have that conversation with her, even though we've known each other for years. But, you know, doing that one thing, putting that one email out, and that I was reminded by, because the email or the Facebook post popped up in my feed of like, I put out that one Facebook post that at that time, 2 or 3 years ago, was the most terrifying thing that I had done in a long time. And yet, you know, it was that kind of one thing that drove this one thing that drove this one thing. So it's really about that action. So I just want to, I kind of sped through that, but I wanted to leave some time for conversation, and really to give you the opportunity to think about, you know, sort of that one takeaway. You know, the one thing, what's the one small thing that you can do? So I'm going to stop that screen share. Just so I can see some of your faces, and get a sense from you around, you know, was there something from that is a takeaway that you can do in your own business or in your own life? I don't want to call on anyone, so we could just leave it at that.
Sorry.
There's a bit of a time delay here, I think. Imagine in rural PEI. Lose time with context switching. Big major problem. Like a lot of rabbit holes lately.
Yeah.
I feel like there's no production happening. Like there's no, at the end of the day, it feels like, well, that was a wasted day.
Mm-hmm.
And that one resonated.
That one resonated, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And Jackie, you had talked too about, you had asked a couple of questions, and I just wanted to go to them. And I think, like right now, that is such a huge challenge, right? Because, and again, like I find myself doing this all the time. Like, I was doing something the other day and I logged onto my bank account and then I was like, oh, I'll pay those bills. And I paid these bills. And then I went up and I was like, whoa, I was focusing on one thing and I completely lost my focus. So I think it's, that context switching is a real challenge. You had also asked about how do you prioritize tasks when your priorities are changing daily, weekly, especially during this time? And then strategies for long-term and short-term. So in terms of that, one of the things that is such a challenge right now is that we're in a world of multiple scenario planning. And so I think that's part of what you're looking at, Jackie, is like, when the priorities are changing all of the time, how do I prioritize? And right now we are looking at multiple scenarios, right? So you would be looking at what does this look like with, some tourism activity? What does this look like with no tourism activity? What does this look like if we fully open? What does, all, and so it's a little bit exhausting. And I would say that there's a little bit of a difference between context switching and that idea around prioritizing when things change, and kind of a recognition that we are in this phase right now of planning for multiple scenarios, which feels exhausting. Does that make sense? Does that answer your question? Okay. Strategies for short-term organization versus long-term. Do you want to give me a sense of what your, kind of a little bit of context for that question?
It's all about, I can organize something for today, and then I watch a Zoom. Like this morning, I watched the chamber, and he was talking about all the plan that each business has to submit for health and safety. And what I thought and had already done, and it was already prepared, and what I listened to this morning, I went, oh, now it's organizing those thoughts and all the planning, and now it literally just changed. So the short term, organizing that short term thing, and now he was talking about things that kind of scared me. I'm thinking, oh my gosh, I have to do all this. So it's actually keeping the two separate, right? I planned, and then you have to plan for now and then. Do you know what I mean? And organizing the two, and anyway.
So I think there's a little bit of recognizing what is in your control and what is out of your control. Mm-hmm. And so, and really understanding that right now, I think we all want to have, we all really are wanting government in particular to give us a clear set of directions and guidelines, and they just can't do that right now. And so, I feel like I'm losing my train of thought. So I think in the short term, that short term versus long term, or how do I prioritize? part of it is looking at like what's critical for your business and what do you have control over as compared to what you don't. And I think anything, certainly in my experience around those, sort of operational plans and what that, return to work stuff looks like, until it's imminent, I don't know. I think it's important to kind of keep looking at it and seeing what is, what they're talking about. But they seem to be operating on a really just moments before people need it. Is it finalized? And then it's not even final. Yeah. And then you asked about a time that I missed a deadline. Big or small. I wrote a really great project proposal when I worked at Women's Network for about $40,000 and submitted it a week later to the funder. Not so much because I'm really bad at details. And so it wasn't so much that I missed, I didn't realize I missed the deadline because I put it in my calendar wrong. So that to me is more around how, and I used to always say, I'm gonna, when I die, the obituary will be Sarah was killed by a detail. Because that's where my struggle is. I don't so much struggle with deadlines because I've worked around deadlines for a long, long time, and I'm a strong, organized personality. So I tend to kind of, what is it? What are the milestones? Work back. But details, man, they're so hard. They're so hard. Yeah. Other questions or comments on my rolling run through of prioritizing? And I just want to look and make sure if I answered other people's questions. Ash, did that help you with suggestions for blocking out distractions? Just turn them off.
Yeah, it does help. Actually, I was trying to think earlier, my husband gave me a couple of suggestions for like applications that help you with that too, like help you to block out certain websites between certain hours and whatnot. I'll put them in the comments after we're done. I'll have to ask him again what they were because I was maybe a little distracted when he told me. But yeah, I think like stuff like that, I think would actually help me a lot. I'm just so reluctant to use it. For some reason, there's like, I have this mindset that I need to have access to social media 24/7. But he's like, Ashley, like seriously though, if you turned it off for 3 hours, no one would know. But I think lots of people are in the same boat. Like 100%. I go on there to message a client back because I get messages from all these different messaging platforms. Like it's hard to remember even where people are contacting me from. So I'll go on Facebook to respond to a client. And next thing I know, I'm like responding to someone's, I don't know, status with a GIF, and I'm off doing something else. And I'm like, what did I come here for? So I feel like, yeah, if I were to just turn it off for 3 hours, I'd probably be all right.
And if I'm just going to jump in, if you did, and it became part of your routine, it annoys you then whenever it wakes up or it starts again or it lets you, you're like, oh, because I have mine shut off and then when it's on, it's like, oh my gosh. So it takes some time, but it does work.
Yeah. So I'll find out from him what the things were that actually block it. Like it actually makes it so you physically can't go to Facebook on your computer between certain hours or something. And I'm like, that's probably what I need.
You can also shut off your timeline. If you Google kill my timeline, there's like an add-in so that you can't, like you can go in and you can like see your groups and stuff, but you can't scroll through the stuff.
I love that.
I don't know if it might be, I think it's kill my timeline or kill my newsfeed, or it'll come up.
I'm going to look that up as soon as we're done, and I'll share it with everybody too.
Great.
Anyone else have any cool things?
Yeah, anyone else sort of comments or thoughts on we have like 2 minutes left, so I would love to hear from a couple of people, if not everyone. Again, maybe we can, what is the, is there one thing that you might choose to do now that you yeah, what is the one commitment that you're making to yourself to help you focus or manage your time? Carol, can I pick on you?
Sure. One thing that kind of, and a lot of this I already know. I don't necessarily do it, but I know it well. So that's a big takeaway. Like maybe I should just start doing it because I already know what I should be doing. But one thing that kind of struck me when you were talking was when you talked about like the vision for the year. So I feel like all of us have just dropped that. And so we don't even think about it anymore. And that's not really a good thing. Like it might have changed, but I think that we should still hang on to something. I'm guilty of dropping it and be like, Jesus, I'm just going to get through this. But I think if I had a vision of how do I want to get through this, like what do I want January of next year to look like? And then to hold on to that, it may not come true, but at least it's something to get me through this. Mm-hmm. So that kind of stuck out to me, where it's like, yeah, I did have a vision, but I just tossed it in the garbage, basically. I need to dig it out or make a new one.
And it's such a great thing to point out, Carol, because I think it is easy for all of us to be like, well, you know, but and like, holy cow, I do 90-day plans with all my clients, and it was like the 15th of April, and I was like, well, look at that. We're supposed to do something. Oops. You know, we've been doing other things, but like those things that are super natural to us, you know, we have all become so destabilized that I think it's a great takeaway to just go back to, you know, what was that vision that I had for my business for this year, and what parts of it that maintain and what parts of it do I need to look at, because again, it goes back to how do we focus if we don't know what it is that we're focusing on?
So reestablishing some goals.
Yeah. I'm aware of the time.
That's it. Yeah. Well, thank you so much. Super appreciate it. I know I definitely have a few things that I'm going to do. I'm trying to walk more. So your whole just get up and do a 5-minute walk. I think I'm going to try to actually do that just around the house, you know. Yeah. I have a timer, like there's a built-in thing on my monitor where I don't know what it is, every hour or something, it tells me that my eyes need a well-timed rest. Maybe I'll also use that as a as a walk reminder, and then hopefully that helps with other things.
I do walk and talks. Yes. So there are certain people, like I have a conversation with my friend Susan almost every morning. She lives in Ottawa. And like there are certain people where over time, I only talk to them if I'm walking.
Mm-hmm. I like that.
Yeah, but yeah, 5 minutes. That's all we need to do. 5 minutes, and you'll feel so much better.
I like it. Awesome. Well, thank you so much. We super appreciate your time. Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much. We can
just continue this conversation too. Like I love this group, and if anyone has any questions,
this group loves you.
What's that?
And this group loves you.
But if anyone wants to follow up or ask questions, then certainly just, you know, ask in the group or find me. It really is my favorite thing, is really all of you. So
thank you.
Thank you.
Enjoy your day, guys.
Bye.
So nice to see you all.